Hello, everyone. As you know, what I do is I tend to look over all of the questions that come in, and then what I attempt is to put them all or collect them until we get to a point where there's enough commonality. And so, one of you had asked me if I'd say something about little white lies. Another one had asked if I'd say something about sloth. Another person had asked what the differences were between little white lies and regular lies and all those other sorts of things. And so I'm going to work with that. And without once again having to tell you the different hats I wear when I do this, I am nonetheless going to pull together today and see if it makes any sense at all. Well, most of us were brought up in an environment where we were told that there was nothing wrong with little white lies because we were withholding information from somebody for their own good. What that means is we predetermined what was for their best good. And therefore, by withholding information from them, they won't be so upset. Now, right up front, that sounds like a person is really more concerned about the feelings of another person. But there's a couple things wrong with that. The one is, do you think that Jesus really withholds truth from us because he's afraid that we might be upset with him? And Jesus thinks it's for our own good to be told something other than the absolute truth? Well, I don't think so. If we're Christians, then we have to follow him. Or some like to say the truth hurts. As long as we understand what truth is and what truth isn't. Truth is not what I think, or I feel, or I believe. That may not be truth. But it means that when we have substantial, objective information to present, we present it. Now the problem here is, here's the tendency of some people. I feel this way, so I'm going to go tell this person how I feel, and that person, I'm going to call this person, and we're going to chat about it. And if I can get enough people to agree with me, then it must be truth. Really? You don't believe that, do you? Okay. But that is the way we oftentimes function in the world. And if you stop and think about it, what about the crucifixion? How'd that take place? I feel this way about Jesus. Do you? I haven't thought about that. Well, think about it. Well, I'm going to go to somebody else and talk with them. Hey, what do you think? I was just hearing over here. They said this about. They said, what about Jesus? Is that what he thinks? Well, I can't be with him then. So what happens is all this chit chat's going around, and the next thing you know, there's a case against Jesus that probably has no truth in it, but has a lot of feeling, a lot of opinion, and a lot of misperception. So let's go back to the little white lies. I don't want to tell somebody this truth because I'd like them to find it out for themselves. Saw a movie the other night. It sounds bad, but it wound up it became appropriate in another way. And that is where a man dies, and at his funeral, both of his daughters show up with their mothers. Turns out the man had two families going on here. He even named each daughter Catherine. So the two Catherines, who are only 7 days apart, get to meet each other for the first time at the funeral. Now, this man told a whole series of little white lies. He thought his little white lies were so that he wouldn't hurt anybody's feelings. Well, I think you probably understand when the funeral director asked Catherine to come up to do the eulogy, it was kind of awkward when two Catherines walked up. Well, okay. The movie got better, by the way. But it taught me a lesson once again, and that is oftentimes people tell little white lies not because they're trying to save this person from feeling badly, but because they're trying to protect their own egos, their own self, and not let other people that they have know they have feelings going on inside of them. Knowing that down inside of them, they're the ones that are being involved in deception of themselves, but they're making it a little white lie so that this person won't get upset with this person. Now, folks, that's a sin. Yeah, it's a sin. I don't know what's little about it. I don't know what's white about it, but I know it's a lie. A lie is a lie. Now, if a person's intention is not to hurt another human being, then they just need to work on their communication skills or find ways that this can be done in a more appropriate fashion. And not the perpetrator consider themselves to be the judge of another human being. I know what you can absorb. I know what you can handle. Really? Well, let me tell you this. Oftentimes when I'm counseling people, they're still angry about the little white lies that were told to them by people who were significant in their lives, especially when they found out later on something that they wish they had known well in advance. So always when you think about little white lies, say, is it because I'm really trying to save the other person, or am I trying to cover myself? Well, let's go to the next one. Lies. The problem with lies are, they are misrepresentations of reality. And they oftentimes are based on my own perspective. If people didn't lie, we wouldn't have to have so many attorneys. If people didn't lie, we wouldn't have to have so many judges. So apparently lying has been around for a long time, because we read about judges in the Old Testament. In the New Testament, we talk about whether it's appropriate to take somebody to court or not. Well, if everybody agreed on everything, you wouldn't need to go to court, would you? So lies are oftentimes subjective ways in which people present their opinion, but dignify it by giving it some information that seems to be credible. Let me look at it another way with you. On one hand, there are people who know they've told a lie, and I know they know they've told a lie because I hear confessions. And even though I would say to you when I hear confessions, I want to weep when I hear the confessions, sometimes because I think some people beat themselves up too much. They're too hard on themselves. And then when they start talking about what they feel guilty about, and I listen about how they've heaped guilt onto themselves, and then they think somebody else is giving it to them, when in fact they're heaping it on themselves because of their childhood, because when somebody said this, I felt this way, teacher said this to me, whatever it is. So we always have to listen carefully so that they can be healed of their always turning on the guilt knob. But the problem is when we take all of those feelings and those lies and we start believing them ourselves. Try it out. I don't think any of you have done this. But consider a story that you have told that really never took place, but you keep telling as if it were truth. Sometimes this has to do with human relationships. You know, for some people, I want to really sing the song Let It Go. And the reason for that is because if we were slighted, or if there was a conflict in our family when we were children, or people weren't getting along with each other, you know, at some time you gotta let it go. And why is it that an event that maybe took 15 minutes gets 15 to 30 years time? Isn't that odd? That something that maybe took 15 to 30 minutes to take place is now being discussed for the rest of a person's life, and really even becomes a part of their repertoire. Meaning that at some point, you know, eventually if they're upset about something and they express their being upset, that this always goes in there. You can be sure. You can almost, some people tell me, when they get into arguments with the spouse, they kind of go like this. When the subject comes up, they go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then they know what the subject's going to be. So that means two things. First of all, people haven't let it go. Second of all, they haven't forgiven somebody, and maybe they haven't forgiven themselves. But lies do that to us. We keep on trying to convince ourselves that something was other than what it was. Now, it's true. Let's say, for example, that a person is never aware that they have done something highly painful, or they are doing something that obviously they've been thinking about for a long time, premeditated lying and premeditated anger and all those other kinds of things. I mean, give me a break. Do we not know what forgiveness is about? And I guess the point is this. One of the things that Jesus is clear about is that he's constantly forgiving us for things that we do. Doesn't he say that we're supposed to do the same? Do you remember that parable? Remember that parable? In the parable, man is forgiven. He's happy. He goes out, and he won't forgive somebody else for the same thing. So Christians are just a different breed of people. And that is that we are called to be forgivers. We're called to let it go. We're called to be able to say, you don't have to lie to somebody else. Because if you tell the truth, what's the Bible say about truth? The truth will set you free. Well, here's one of the cousins. I'm bringing in some more questions I have. Here's one of the cousins of lying. Sloth. What happens is that when we're just downright lazy and we tell somebody, oh yeah, I'm going to do it. Remember that parable? Oh yeah, I'm going to do that. And have no intention of doing it. Was that a lie or not? But then come up with a good excuse as to why I couldn't do it. You know, it's the proverbial, the dog ate my homework assignment. So why would we do that? Well, partly because we don't want to tell another person, you know, in the end, I need to tell you the truth. I don't want to do that, and besides, I'm kind of on the lazy side anyway, so I don't want to hurt your feelings, so let me just say up front that I really can't do that. Instead of lying and say, oh, yeah, I'll get that done right away. But you see, sloth is one of the 7 deadly sins. And what's another word for sloth? Laziness. And some of us are just plain lazy. I'm lazy about some things. I am. And I need to come to grips with the fact that at times, maybe I've given some really weird excuses about why I didn't do something. Well, let's look at the difference here. When you don't do something for me, that's just a bad excuse. When I don't do something for you, I have a superb, justifiable reason. See? I wonder what the difference is. Well, I'm afraid it's a little bit like the difference between mercy and justice, isn't it? When I'm in trouble, I want mercy. When you're in trouble, I want justice. So let's go to the next part of it. Believing our lies, being lazy. Let's get into the procrastination phase, because it's really all kind of related, isn't it? Procrastination, putting it off, putting it off, putting it off. But asking the question up front, did they ever intend to do it in the first place? Or was there a fear that if I said I don't want to, that they won't be liked? So let me tell a little white lie. You know what? I'll get around to it or a black lie. Well, you know, I started it and then it was on the computer and I lost it. To believing the lie. I wish that would stop happening with my computer. My computer's crashing all the time now. To, I almost forgot that was due. Let me think. Oh yeah, I had a phone call yesterday. I have a doctor's appointment today. And on, coming up with reasons why we don't do things. Well, I hope you don't think that I'm being negative. After all, I didn't ask the questions, you did. But the reason I'm sharing this with you is because one day there's something called Judgment Day. And there are a few things I think we need to straighten out before Judgment Day. One, we simply cannot tell God any little white lies. Second of all, we can't tell him any black lies. Third of all, we can't rearrange the truth because he is the truth and he knows already. Fourth, we can't make up excuses for why we don't do things because he already knows what the real story is. Next, we can't procrastinate Because, when we are called home, when we die, this is not going to be a time for us to say something with our dying breath. Darn it, I really wish I had written up a will. A little too late for that, isn't it? And have you ever considered how selfish some of our behaviors are as they are getting ready to die? Not thinking about the people we left behind and the things we're going to have dumped on them we never told them about. Procrastination means not making up a will, not having all of our affairs in order, not providing for the church, not being able to have thought about what my relationship is with Jesus, wanting to make that confession that we've been planning for a very long time, but you know what? Darn it, once again, I wanted to make my confession, but did you know there was a white truck in front of me, and it just slowed me down, and I left with a lot of time, and I just didn't know what happened. Well, this is a time for us to get right to the basic facts. Folks, we're all sinners. We've got to cut everybody a break here. I sin, you sin, everybody we know sins. But what's the deal? We can all be forgiven. What makes your sin worse than my sin? If I do something quite unintentionally, should I be judged for it? Well, I don't know. I mean, maybe if I'm oblivious, maybe if I have twisted things around, maybe if I'm lying, yeah, I mean, I get it. But whose job is it to do that? Am I supposed to be the judge and the jury? Should I go to everybody and tell them exactly what they're doing wrong? Would that make the church better? No, that's a relationship with Jesus, and it involves turning it over to Jesus, telling him, I'm sorry I feel this way. I'm sorry for what I've done, the little white lies, the big black ones, the laziness, the procrastination, the excuse. I'm really sorry about all that, God. I can't really give you any excuses because you know that prayer, don't you? Almighty God, unto whom all hearts are open, all desires known, and from whom no secrets are hid. Cleanse the thoughts of our hearts by the inspiration of thy Holy Spirit, that we may perfectly love you and worthily magnify your holy name. Now think about that. Are you ready for Judgment Day? Are you ready for being called home? Let's look over all the excuses that we would be inclined to tell Jesus as to why we did this or didn't do this, or why we thought that, or why we said that, whatever it may be. And ask ourselves, would it make the trip a little bit easier if we got rid of all of them? Would it make our trip a little easier if we let go of all the hurts, frustrations, angers, grudges? Holy smokes. How much lighter would the journey be? Or let's do this just for pretend. Let's pretend that everything you're upset about, angry about, feeling guilty about, made excuses for, lied about, whatever it is. Let's pretend that one of them was something in a large suitcase. You die, and when you open your eyes, you're standing before the judgment seat. And you look inside and you see your grudges, your resentments, your angers, and all the things I just mentioned. And before Jesus will pronounce anything to you, you have to first explain to him why you packed those items in your suitcase. Think about it. Think about it. Is that really what you wanted to take with you? Or are there some other things you'd like to take with you, which can include compassion, speaking the truth in love, embracing, forgiving, thinking the best of people instead of the worst? All those things. Those, my friends, will make the load much lighter. And the reason? Because all those words are found in the Bible when Jesus speaks. Maybe that's a tough subject, but a good one to talk about on Friday. And God bless you. I'll look forward to seeing you again tomorrow.